Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another match review. And this is Chelsea nil, Arsenal 1. Obviously, not feeling in the best of moods after that game, but still here to give my thoughts. And I would love to know your thoughts as well in the comments. So make sure to let me know what you thought about that game. Any positives, if there are to draw any from this game, negatives as well, room for improvement, and let me know just how you're thinking. So in this match review, I'm going to be going through my thoughts about the match, the starting 11, just walking you through the key things that I noticed in the first half, the second half, the players that I noticed, and basically where do Chelsea go from here. So looking at the starting 11, as always, I wasn't quite sure the formation, but I thought it was going to be a back four. Edouard Mendy starts in goal, of course, because Kepa is out injured. Then we had a back four of Marco Correa, Thiago Silva, Trevor Chalobah, and Cesar Azpilicueta. A midfield two of Jorginho, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Mason Mount, Kai Havertz, Raheem Sterling, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang facing his old side. So right off of the bat, I didn't really quite know where the goals were going to come from. You have that maybe more or less consistent front three of Raheem Sterling, Kai Havertz, and Aubameyang. And the defense as well, playing Azpilicueta on the right side, Cucurella on the left side. It just looks like better business at this point that we were able to bring Cucurella in. I know a lot of people are saying, why are you spending so much money on a backup left back? And now we don't know how long Ben Chilwell is going to be out for. So that ended up being a pretty good piece of business. Trevor Chalobah keeps a spot in the starting 11. He's really come into some form, so I was happy to see a start for him. And Thiago Silva, of course, holds his place. Midfield pivot, Jorginho and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I was a bit surprised not to see Kovacic starting, but I do think that he is not fully fit and he's nursing an injury, so his minutes are being managed very specifically, and that's why we're only seeing him come in for 10-15 minutes at this point. Hopefully he can start getting some more fitness and get over that injury niggle, whatever it is. And then I didn't really have any surprises. I did think that Aubameyang was going to start versus old team. I would personally love to see Armando Broja getting more starts because I think that he brings something very unique to the side, but it's a London derby. Aubameyang has a lot of experience, and he also, hopefully you would have thought, had a fire under his belly to try to score against his old side. But right from the get-go, Arsenal just dominated Chelsea, and I knew that this was going to be a difficult match. Arsenal actually beat Chelsea the past 2 seasons at the Bridge, beating us 4-2 and 1-0. So this is now the 3rd year in a row that they've beat us away from home at Stamford Bridge, and they only had 1 draw and 1 loss so far in the Premier League. So they're in some absolutely ridiculous form. So I always knew that it was going to be a hard match, but I just felt that maybe we would have been up for the races a little bit more in this game. Arsenal were creating so much. Chelsea were just struggling to put together some passes. So I'll kind of go through, I took some notes throughout the game. So I'll kind of go through the couple of notes that I jotted down. I said Arsenal were dominating in the opening minutes. There was then Havertz around the 9-minute mark. He had a cutback to Aubameyang that could have perfectly been a 1-0 opportunity. He didn't get his head up in time. I'll talk more about Kai Havertz in a bit. Then I said Arsenal's high press is causing issues, and I think that this was a big one because they were pressing us so high up on the pitch that we were struggling to even get out of our half at some points. And even when we would get out of our half, we were just kind of kicking and hoofing the ball up and just trying to clear the ball, and we weren't really able to play so much. So they did a really good job basically making sure that we weren't able to create anything. I wrote down in the 18th minute, it was brilliant defensive work from Thiago Silva to block Jesus after Ruben Loftus-Cheek lost possession. Thiago Silva again just showing why he is one of the best in the business, even at 38 years old still. Just the way that he is able to read the game, I find super, super impressive. And he definitely let Ruben off the hook there because that was a really bad giveaway. But Ruben wasn't alone. There were a ton of bad giveaways in this match because of that high Arsenal press that I spoke about. And they just had so much energy. They were fighting for every ball, every second ball. And I just felt that we were never really able to get a foothold in the game. We always felt that we were just defending for our lives, wave after wave after wave of Arsenal attack, and we were never really able to get out and create anything. I think that's one of my biggest criticisms in this match, is that going forward, Chelsea just the attack just completely broke down. I thought Raheem Sterling maybe had some positive moments, but other than that, there just wasn't really much. I think Aubameyang only had 8 touches in the entire game until he came off. Not really so much his fault because we couldn't get him into the game. He was trying his best with the balls over the top, or clearances. I don't even know if you can call it balls over the top. It was mostly clearances, and he was trying his best, but we just weren't able to string together those passes. The 25th minute, Mendy had a bit of a shaky moment. He looked a little bit iffy with the ball at his feet. Not the first time that he has made a mistake with the ball at his feet, but thankfully we didn't get punished on that occasion. And then I wrote down at the 60th minute that we got caught in possession again. I said time and time again, Arsenal's press is very good. So I think that was the main highlight. Looking at the goal that Arsenal scored, in the 63rd minute, I just don't even know how that happens. At first, it looked like Saka scored directly from the corner kick, and I think even if Gabriel didn't get on the end of it, the ball still would have gone into the back of the net. Kai Havertz did not cover himself in glory there, defending at the near post. Thiago Silva, surprisingly not in the best position. I do think perhaps he didn't want to hit the ball. It was a very awkward ball, so I think perhaps he didn't want to hit it into his own goal. But again, just Chelsea conceding from another set piece. That's something that we've been doing a lot recently, and we've seen it this season. I think Chelsea have, before the game, I saw that we conceded 4 goals from set pieces so far this season, and I think it was like the 8th in the league. So now maybe we're like less than 8th for conceding from set pieces, which is just not good enough. And it's a real shame, because if we had handled that, maybe we could have gone out with a draw instead of a loss and taken a couple of points off of Arsenal. So I'm just going to share my screen, go through some stats that I see here. So ball possession, honestly, I'm surprised that we had 44% to their 56%, maybe a bit towards the end of the game. Like you see here, we had the last 10 or 15 minutes that we were really pushing, but this is just really sad to see that this is all of Arsenal's possession. Chelsea had a bit in a couple of moments, but we're playing at home. We should 100% be doing better. We had 5 shots, 1 on target, 1 off target, and they had 14 shots, 2 on target, but 9 off target. Their expected goals was, I think, 2 or 2.5, something like that. Tied for block shots. They had 6 corner kicks to our 4. We were offside 3 times. We had 20 fouls in this game and 5 yellow cards to their 2. It did seem at the beginning of the game that the ref was just blowing his whistle for any sort of contact, any foul. Arsenal also had 3 big chances, 2 big chances missed, 10 shots inside the box to our 4 shots outside the box, and our accurate passing 73%. That seems very, very low for Chelsea. Normally, I think we're in like I don't know, like 85, is that too high? 80, 85-ish range, and they at 73%. That's super, super low. Lost possession about the same. We beat them in aerial duels, tackles. They had more interceptions and clearances. But as you can see here at the table, our form is just not looking great. We have 1 win in our last 5, but we have 2 draws and 2 losses. So we haven't won in 4 games, and Arsenal now back at the top of the table, 34 points. Do I think that they're going to win the Premier League? Probably not. I don't see them winning. I do think maybe with European football as well, City are used to this for so many years. I would be really surprised if they drop off unless they have some real injury crisis or something. So I don't think that Arsenal are going to win the league, but this could have been a really good opportunity to take points off them. And personally, for me, I am a bit worried about Chelsea's position for top 4 at this point. We're in a real time of change in at the club and just with players and the new manager and everything. I know that we have a lot of injuries. Some key players are out as well. Reece James, Ben Chilwell, Fofana, N'Golo Kante, Kepa. Now that's 5 off the top of my head, and Kovacic is not fully fit, so 6 essentially. But you just expect more from the Chelsea side, especially in a London derby. We just looked a bit flat the entire game and allowed Arsenal to dominate in this match. Just going to go through some of your comments now. Suha says, give some more time to Potter. Don't forget how Arteta has changed Arsenal. Yes, absolutely. He's been there for a couple of years now, and they had a lot of growing pains. This is the first season that they've really looked like very, very good. I think last season they looked good, and then they kind of tapered off a bit towards the end, and they were a little bit unlucky not to get top 4. But this season they're growing a lot, and that's the main problem I think that we have at Chelsea right now, is that we have a manager in Graham Potter that has players that were bought under all different managers, and I don't know how much of a recruiting strategy there has been at Chelsea, because you have players from the Antonio Conte era, Frank Lampard, Thomas Tuchel, and now Graham Potter. Well, no players brought in under Potter because he came in after the window closed, but a 5th manager. So he's dealing with all of these different players that were bought under different circumstances. And there's a lot of players that I don't understand quite why they're playing in a certain position or where they fit. For example, Raheem Sterling to me has always looked the strongest as a left winger. Him and Christian Pulisic, for me, always left wingers. That's where their best position is. But today he was playing completely on the right. And I'm wondering why. When you have Kai Havertz that was playing on the left, he could perfectly play on the right as well. Kai Havertz, I don't know what his best position is either. So it just seems that we spent a lot of money on good players, but not knowing how to utilize them best. And so we're not able to get the best out of them. So I think that's going to be Graham Potter's job for the next year, is trying to figure out where to get, like, who he wants to go forward with, who to maybe move on from the club, and how he can get the best out of his players, and what formation he can use, or formations or tactics he can do to get the best out of this side. Personally, for me, I think that it's a really tough one when you have so many players out injured. Like essentially, like half of our back line is just out. So you have the likes of Aspi and Cucurella, even Thiago Silva is playing basically every game because we don't really have an option at this point. And I don't know. I feel like when you're missing so many of your top players as well, like if we had a fit N'Golo Kante, Reece James, and Ben Chilwell when he's at his best, we look like such a completely different side, and we're really missing them right now. And I thought Azpilicueta, for example, in this match had a brilliant, well, I don't want to say brilliant because we lost, but I thought that he had a good game. And for him, I don't expect him to have such consistent performances anymore, because we're playing so many games, and he's one of the older players, and that position requires a lot of running. But I thought that he played well, but we were missing that attack from the right side, and that's what Reece James brings to the team. I'm just going to have some water and go through your comments. Phantom of many topics is we only have the UCL to win, nothing else. Well, we have the EFL Cup, which we play against Man City midweek, and we have the FA Cup as well. I think those are probably more likely than us winning the Champions League at this point in time. But going to say a lot how we do against Man City. I'm wondering the type of team that we're going to put out. I have a feeling we're going to put out a pretty full strength team in order to try to get a win. And really, it's a must-win game if we want to stay in that competition. So I have a feeling that we're going to put out a strong team. Hopefully, Man City will put out a bit of a weaker team. They tend to, I feel like in the past they've tended to put out their B team, which is still an incredible team in these competitions until the later stages, and they're also going to know that they have to get the points to put the pressure on Arsenal. Ravi asks, do you think Chelsea's midfield is a concern these days? It's a good question. I actually thought that the midfield was okay today. I thought Jorginho had a good game, and I was maybe a little bit surprised because in these sorts of fast-paced matches, sometimes he can struggle a little bit, but I thought that he was really on his game today. I think we're just missing a defensive midfielder like N'Golo Kante. He's just a complete game changer for us, and we never really had a backup plan, even though we knew that he got injured a lot, and now he's going to be out for at least 4 months or so. We do have Zakaria that played in the Dinamo Zagreb game, but I don't want to get ahead of myself because I did think that he had a very good performance in that match. I think that he brings something new and different to the team, and he's also a big presence. He's like 6'3", which is 1.91 meters. I looked it up for any of you that don't do feet and inches. But I don't want to get ahead of myself because he hasn't played in the Premier League yet, and it's a completely different ball game playing versus Dinamo Zagreb in a game that that essentially didn't mean much because we already qualified versus playing in the Premier League. Jonathan said there's no team chemistry. Again, I think that it's really difficult because Chelsea have been playing so many teams and we're chopping and changing a lot because there's just so many games because of the World Cup. We're also seeing a lot of injuries, which is something that I mentioned that I was worried about because of the sheer number of games that we're playing. So I think you have a lot of players playing in a lot of different positions, players getting fatigued because they're playing so much. And just, I don't know, it's a really difficult one. Phantom, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. I didn't know I had them on. I thought I disabled them on my channel. So thank you. I don't monetize my YouTube at all. Chelsea will be in the UCL next year only if we win the UCL. It's looking quite difficult at this point. Right now we're sitting in 7th. But let me just pull up the Premier League table. So Arsenal, I'll share my screen so you can see it as well. It's okay, I'm just streaming. You can make some noise. Okay, my husband's here. Arsenal are in first with 34 points, then City in second with 32 points. Then there's a bit of a gap. Tottenham in third with 26 points. Newcastle currently playing a game, so they have a game in hand over us with 25 points. So imagine if we had won today, we could have gotten a bit closer to them. And then Man United playing right now, they're 23 points, Brighton in 6th with 21 points. So it's really quite tight. If we can get a win and maybe Brighton and United to drop points, then we go right back into contention. But all of these teams are looking so good. Arsenal's looking so strong. City's looking strong. Spurs, I'm curious to see how they do. Maybe they could fall off a little bit. Newcastle are looking incredible right now. Man United, again, I'm curious to see how they do. And Brighton, I don't know if they'll keep it up. I think that we can finish ahead of them. So it really depends. And I think a big talking point as well is that I think that we will hopefully reinforce in the January transfer window with the amount of injuries that we've had. So hopefully we will see some new players coming in and business getting done. I think we're going to need a pretty big transfer window in the summer as well. Terry says, bring any manager you would like in and you'll still see the same results at this stage. Patience. Even under Thomas Tuchel, as much as I loved Thomas Tuchel, we weren't playing extremely well and we were having really difficult times. So I'm not sure if it's the team, if everybody's exhausted, if it's just the mix of players and that we have a lot that are maybe playing out of position or brought in for different formations and not playing their position. But yeah, we weren't seeing good results at the beginning of this season either. Dia asks, why was Ruben playing instead of Kova? I'm pretty sure Kova is still kind of injured and he is not at full fitness. So that's why we're only seeing him play for 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes at a time because they're nursing that injury. But this wasn't really surprising to me. Joel said Tuchel had us holding 4 to Arsenal. I don't know why people bring it up. Potter needs more time with his first starting 11 before we can judge. Yeah, I agree. Last season, Arsenal beat us 4-2 at the Bridge. The season before that, they beat us 1-0 at the Bridge. So we've had a bit of a rough run with Arsenal in the past couple of years. So, and this is the best, like those seasons, they were not doing as well as they're doing this season. So this is the best season that they've had. And Greg Potter really hasn't had so much time, as Joel said, with this starting 11. And he didn't have a preseason with them. And we have so many players out injured. We have 5, 6 if you're including Kovacic, key players out injured. If you bring N'Golo Kante and Reece James into the team, it completely changes. So I think it more than anything, it highlights the fact that we need more reinforcements and more players, just more squad depth at Chelsea because we're running a bit loose. And I kind of predicted, I said it, I've been saying it for a year because of the placement of the World Cup. These players are going to get so tired. Caleb said, I hate being reactionary, but man, I'm frustrated. Yeah, I'm trying to take it with a pinch of salt. I totally understand, and I don't want it to ruin my game either. What's your top 4 for the season? So before the season started, I think I predicted City, Liverpool, Spurs, Chelsea. And now I think I'm predicting City, Arsenal. Yeah. And then if Chelsea get top 4, I think it will be the 4th spot with Spurs, Newcastle, United, Chelsea, all kind of fighting for it. I don't know who sits in that 3rd spot. Maybe Spurs still. It's a really tough one. It's so tight this season. Videos PPT says, good evening, Elizabeth. I hope we do better after the World Cup in the EPL and the Champions League. I sure hope so as well. Because it's been 4 games since we've had a win. And I really don't like talking about how Chelsea aren't playing so great at the moment. Terry asks, what's with people saying Sakari should have started? He only had a decent game versus Dinamo. That's nowhere near close to Arsenal. Potter only had the options he chose today. Yeah, I tend to agree with Terry, guys. I wouldn't have started Sakari in this game. Like I mentioned, playing Dinamo Zagreb in a game where you have nothing on the line because you've already qualified in first position for the Champions League is not the same as playing Arsenal at home in a London derby in the Premier League. I'd rather he play some maybe less important game. Like every game in the Premier League is important, but maybe a team that is in as good form as Arsenal, for example, to get his feet wet before just throwing him into a Premier League game. So for me, this was not really so shocking. Will be interesting to see if we recall Maatsen now. He has a good chance to establish himself in the starting 11 with Cucurella finding it difficult to establish himself. Yeah, something that's, I don't want to say interesting, but Cucurella was actually in the hospital. I think he lost like 5 pounds. I don't remember if it was 5 pounds or 5 kilos, which is a massive difference, but he lost a lot of weight. And so I think since then we haven't been seeing the best performances from him. But he was really ill. That's a ton of weight to lose, so it makes sense. I do think we could potentially recall one of Maatsen or even Levi Colwell as well from loan in January for backup, and especially depending on how Ben Chilwell's injury gets on. I haven't seen how long he's going to be out for just yet. I just saw that it does not look good, so I'm assuming he's out for at least a couple of months. Have any of you guys seen in the chat how long Ben Chilwell is going to be out for? And so upsetting for him. Like, I feel absolutely gutted for this guy. Tore his AC. He was in the form of his life, tore his ACL, and he came back. It's a terrible injury to come back from. And he skipped his summer vacation, and he's just training to try to get fit before the World Cup. He has one of his best performances for Chelsea since getting injured. And then he got injured again. Like, I feel absolutely gutted for him. That must be so hard to take. Caleb said recent Chile got injured last year around the same time, and they're injured again. Look at us now. Yeah, and I think this is why, like, thank God we didn't sell Azpilicueta. Could you imagine if we sold Azpilicueta and didn't buy Cucurella? And at the time, everybody was wondering about this decision. But I mean, could you imagine that we would have had absolutely no backup, no squad depth? And even now, they're playing every single game, so we do need some sort of backup. Prashant said, people calling Potter out are disgrace as fans. Just need to be patient with Potter and will dominate Premier League just as Arsenal are doing now. Yeah, it's not going to take a couple of games, as I know it would be nice if it could, but it's going to take a while. And I think, I don't know. I think like 3 years is probably around the time for rebuild. So we just have to be patient. Seeing a couple of mixed results, but people are saying around three-ish months for Ben Chilwell to be out injured. And yes, he's definitely missing the World Cup, unfortunately, for England. So do you guys think that the World Cup is actually coming at a good time for Chelsea, depending on how many players go to the World Cup? I'm trying to think, like Mendy, Reece James is, we don't know, touch and go, but I have a feeling he's not going to make it. Thiago Silva, I think, will be going. Chalobah, we don't know if he's going. Cucurella, I don't know if he's going with Spain. I don't think he's been called up recently. Azpilicueta is probably going with Spain. Jorginho, Italy didn't qualify. Kovacic is probably going. Conte isn't going. Mason's going. Sterling's going. Aubameyang, I'm not sure. And Kai Havertz is going. So you have like maybe half the team. The likes of Conor Gallagher probably on the cusp, maybe not going to make it for the World Cup this year as well. Christian Pulisic will be going, but you have a good chunk of the team that perhaps is going to stay and have the opportunity to train and hopefully get some fitness, and for Potter to be able to work with them. So maybe that could be a bit of a positive. Obviously, you're going to be missing at least half the team, I would say, but just to have a break from all of the action and try to get some fitness, rest for those players that aren't going to the World Cup. But for those coming back, it's going to be interesting because who knows the state that they're going to come back in at this point, and how many injuries we could potentially have. Hopefully not many, but let's see what happens after the World Cup. Terry said, one thing many don't realize is when you change a manager, you don't only lose their weaknesses. Thomas Tuchel had issues with attacking patterns, but people are taking his defensive structures for granted. I actually thought that the defense looked pretty good today. I thought Aspilicueta had a good game. I thought Chalba had a good game. I thought Thiago Silva was pretty good. Cucurella was going against Saka. He had a bit of a battle there. But for the most part, I thought that the defense was okay, and Arsenal had a lot of attack, a lot of opportunities, a lot of shots. It was wave after wave, and I thought that the defense actually did well in this match. It was more the attack that I just felt that Arsenal were pressing so much, and we really couldn't string together anything in the attack, and we weren't making the right passes or able to complete them even, and we just didn't look like we had ideas. It just, everything kind of broke down. And the World Cup could mean chances for academy once Premier League resumes. Good time to evaluate any midfield fullback solution in-house. Yeah, it could be. So let's see what happens. I think hopefully we'll have a bit of a different team once the World Cup is over, and hope then the January transfer window is going to start, and hopefully we can bring in some reinforcements to push for a top 4 finish. So guys, been talking for about half an hour now. Hope that you enjoyed this match reaction, although maybe you didn't enjoy the game so much. If you like this video, make sure to drop it a like so other people can find the channel, and sub to the channel if you aren't already. And hope you guys have a great rest of your day or evening, whatever time you're watching this. And until next time, I'm out. Bye.